Edgar, and it's really a pleasure to be here, and I really, really appreciate the invitation. Of course, I've known about this university for a very long time. I've known Sylvia for a very long time, and a lot of what you do here has really been very close to my heart. First of all, cultural tourism and heritage. Secondly, spirituality, and then of course I met Edgar, and he was a professor of happiness. I said, this is amazing now, and there is of course a journal of happiness, which I find amazing, and I think it's so important as academics that we also recognise the importance of this theme. But this is something for everybody, and this is the whole point. So László was talking about, is there a market for this? I think there is, and you were saying it's growing. I think the interest is growing, the concern is growing. In the post-pandemic era, we all start to think much more about what makes us happy, what keeps us healthy, what does well-being mean. So some of what I'll do will be a little bit about definitions, because it's quite complicated, isn't it? Are we using well-being? Are we using wellness? How does that link to health and happiness? So I think it's quite useful, and especially those doing marketing. I'm interested to know, how do you manage this actually? Which words are you using in your marketing strategy, for example? So one of the things that would be interesting to talk about is, who are our segments, who are our markets, what motivates them? Then maybe you can tell me a bit more about what kind of words you might use in your own marketing, and László will definitely talk more about those kinds of issues. So I like the title that was given, because I think one of the problems is this idea of economy, and where is well-being and wellness sitting in relationship to the economy. And this is a bit difficult, because those of you studying tourism, you know that we had this period of over-tourism. Too many tourists, like living in Barcelona. I mean, I don't know how you feel about tourism now, but certainly it was too much. It tipped over, didn't it, beyond the sort of successful destination, because residents were no longer happy with the development. So how far do you grow? This is always the question. So economy is important, I think, but only to a certain point. And those of you working, for example, in small places, where's the limit of tourism? You know, you want to make a living, you want to make a bit of profit, but, you know, do you want to destroy the culture, lifestyle, the residents' well-being? This is all the difficult questions, isn't it? So I want to introduce as well the concept that I think most of you are familiar with, regenerative tourism. Does this really mean something? Because this is the next stage after sustainability, basically. So to try and connect a little bit these things, but I would also ask you a little bit for your opinions. Also, we can have a brief discussion, maybe in small groups as well, if you agree with that. So let's begin a little bit. I want to think a little bit about definitions and concepts, but not for too long, because it's not a lecture. It should be an interactive session. But I think any time I go to any meeting about anything, it doesn't matter if it's cultural tourism or spirituality or well-being, we always sit for a long time like, what does it mean? Do we have a definition? So I found a definition that I quite like, because we often use quality of life, and I work a lot with cities actually, because I'm living in city, living in Budapest. I lived in London. I've done quite a lot of work on over-tourism in cities. But I like this idea of quality of life. So thinking about general well-being of societies and individuals, but wellness as a path that you take with choices within that. So a choice to be healthier or a choice to be happier. Now, this is my question. Is happiness a choice? I think you have to work at happiness, actually. I read a lot of books about happiness, and it definitely gives me ideas about how to be happier. You know, to appreciate what you've got, not looking for what you haven't got, or be having gratitude, or finding a small amount of happiness every day. There's an actor that I like called Richard E. Grant, who's quite a funny English actor. I'm British. And he wrote an autobiography called A Pocket Full of Happiness. And he said every day, his wife told him every day, find a pocket full of happiness. So something that makes you happy every day. And it could just be a coffee with a colleague or a friend. It could be sunshine. It could be looking at the flowers in the garden. But every day looking a little bit for happiness. So, you know, tourism, we find a lot of things that make us happy, but everyday life, rushing to work and rushing home and doing the household chores, not so much, right? cold grey day when it's raining in England, nothing's good. But there is always something good, right? So positive thinking as well, I think. So wellness, I think, is something, maybe a part. It also can be a business opportunity, it can be a product and so forth, but I think it's a path that we choose. This, I think, was quite interesting, though, and as Edgar said, you know, academics start to deal with concepts of well-being and wellness, but I think it's absolutely true. We have to look at how are everyday people really defining their happiness or their wellness, because it could be something different from what we think. As academics, researchers, even business specialists, do we really know, like, what do people mean by happiness? So how would you define it? So you probably wouldn't disagree that it's about happiness, kindness, fun, safety, mental health, feeling valued, meaning, and so forth. But my question, and it differs, I think, as well. It changes over your life, doesn't it, a bit, depending on age, maybe depending on culture. To me, this is a stereotype. It seems that often in Spain people seem happier than in some other countries. Whether that's true or not is a good question, isn't it? Or are people more sociable? Or are people a little bit more outgoing? With the weather a bit better? It's a good question, isn't it? But whether that's true or not, I don't know. So we have global studies about well-being to compare. Later I show you how does Spain look compared to other countries in OECD, for example. What's good about Spain? You can tell me if you agree. Maybe also Catalonia has some parts that are better than other parts of Spain. Maybe you can tell me that. Think about yourself now, and maybe not so much your age. It could also be personality, couldn't it? You know, people have personalities where they're a positive thinker, they're an optimist. There's that set point theory, isn't there, about happiness, that you're kind of born with about 40% of your sort of happiness in your DNA. So generally, if something bad happens to you, eventually you come back to the set point. And if you're a really negative thinker, you come back to negative thinking. If you're a positive thinker, you come back to more or less positive thinking. So always it's the question, right, this bottle, half full, half empty. Are we looking at what's not there? We're looking at what we have. Oh, I have some water, great. And I can refill it actually at the moment. Maybe in the summer there's a water shortage and then it's really precious. But, you know, is this half full? Well, this is the optimistic view, isn't it? What we have is important. Any comments though? Think about yourself. So maybe one thing that makes you happy. What makes you happy?
Daily life.
Yeah.
A lot of things. I agree with you that happiness is in small things, and being capable of enjoying these small things makes you happier.
Yes, so looking for small things. Yeah, anything make you happy?
Making desserts, maybe.
Oh, making desserts. Yeah, that's a good one.
It's very risky.
Later, I'm going to talk a bit about the choices we make about, you know, how much cake to eat actually, and what the consequences. But it's true, isn't it? Like this sort of idea that something makes us happy in the moment. So, you know, chocolate or a glass of wine. But then, you know, thinking like long term, is it healthy? Do I put on weight and balancing out those things? But yeah, dessert making. You're dealing with food as well, aren't you? This is nice. What makes you happy?
Being close to the sea.
Being close to the sea, yes, and there's a lot of research to show being by the sea makes people happier, yeah, and healthier actually, right?
And how close to the sea?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, seriously, how close to the sea? You go to the sea like physically, or you like the idea of being close to the sea? You know, that's a massive difference there.
Be close, feel the sea.
Yes, and this is why if you have a thalassotherapy facility, it must be within 1 kilometre, right? So you really benefit from the air and the sunshine and the salt. So you have to be close enough, I think, to see it and really get the benefit. I agree, though. I grew up by the sea and I miss the sea. Hungary's language, so I miss it. What makes you happy?
So little things, read a book, or sometimes a glass of wine.
Yes, that's it. That could be that, couldn't it? Just a nice glass of wine, beer, reading a book. Yeah. What makes you happy?
Be in contact with the nature.
Yeah, that's a really important one, isn't it? Yeah.
And the animals and all the things that I have around me.
Yes, and a lot of people don't realise, I think, they're missing nature connection because they live in a big city.
Yeah.
The question is, how much nature do you need? Actually, not so much, it seems from research, even 5 minutes of green. even looking out the window, even having pictures of nature. So even if you're in a city, we could have pictures of landscape on the wall, or even looking out here, like look out to the mountains. Wow, already I feel good in one minute, right? So some nature connection doesn't have to be like 3 weeks in a rural retreat, but something, yeah, that's good. Edgar, lots of things make you happy. What comes to your mind?
Writing, I love writing.
You love writing. Yeah, I also love writing and creative writing. Or, that's nice. That was my thought when I was a child, that whatever I do, I want it to be connected to writing. And so I'm mainly writing books and papers, but still it's nice somehow. I like that process, yeah. And now journaling is popular, isn't it? Where you write down like thoughts, feelings, or even frustrations in a book. It's really good, isn't it? Cathartic, yeah. Sylvia, what makes you happy?
Yeah, many things, but the first thing that came to my mind when you made the question is playing with my daughter.
Oh,
So,
that's
yeah.
so nice.
Then I
Yeah.
can start thinking out, but
Sure, that comes to mind. Yeah, that's really nice, isn't it? Yeah, so your children might make you happy, or your partner, or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
that's temporary. That's a certain number of years you can
That-
do it, but after a
Yeah.
while. It can be something bad. You can't do that anymore, so that's fine.
so sorry, but my oldest one is 19 and we still
Okay. Oh, that's nice.
There's always exceptions. There's always exceptions.
It's important, I think, when you think also about the life stage. But you know, there's lots of debates online about, oh, should I go back to work when my children are young? Oh, my career, and then they get the balance with the family life. But it's too true. Like later, you realise you have teenagers or they're 19, and you think, oh, why was I so worried about work all the time? And I still have 10 years to work, and we miss some parts of our life because we're so focused on something else. So this is also the problem, that only when you get older you think, I should have spent more time at home, I should have spent more time with my children. Well, hopefully you don't think that, but some people regret it, you know. So this is also the point, getting a balance as well, work, family, and, you know, work and leisure, and this difficult balance. Well, can we do it? What makes you happy?
Yeah, for me, I could find the happiness a small thing, but for me it's very important to listen to the music, because the music for me is form part of my life.
That's nice, yeah, music's important. And it came out of László's men's study, men's wellness music. It came out really strongly, didn't it? Yeah, and now you're doing a PhD about sound. Isn't that lovely? Fantastic, that's your passion and your hobby as well. This is nice, I think, if you can merge your passion into your work, right? Yeah, what makes you happy?
When I get inspired of writing my paper and got published, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is to play with my cat. But
Oh.
generally, I'm not that into seeking happiness. I think being peaceful is enough for me.
Ah, yeah. That's a really good point, isn't it? Yeah, we're using the word happiness here and assuming this is the great good, right? But yeah, there might be other feelings or thoughts that you have, like being calm or being satisfied is also good, right? Or not.
That raises a lot of questions about this happiness, overlapping satisfaction, or doesn't. You can be satisfied but not happy,
Yeah.
actually. Yes, it was very nice, but it made you know. But I did like it, but it made me happy. So, and of course, when the paper is completion, that's not necessarily happiness. It's just excited, finally, tick, done, next. So there's all these concepts work very differently. And of course, when you want to sell it, you want to create a product of it or something that triggers it, then it becomes difficult because it's so different at any moment of time of how to translate it.
That's why when we talk about satisfaction, you know, customer satisfaction, I always feel it's like a bit frustrating, it's not enough. I think it should be more than satisfaction, shouldn't it? So those models, I think, you know, going towards more, you know, delight or joy or something, we should be going beyond if we can, although it's hard to always go beyond mere satisfaction, isn't it? Yeah, what makes you happy?
The things which I'm doing.
Things you're doing, yeah, so you're living your best life as we want.
I manage that I can do things I like to do.
That's
In my
wonderful.
life.
What could be better than that?
Yeah,
right?
it's nice.
Yeah, meaning in your life, you know, every day. Great. How about you, Molly?
I have many things I'm independent at the moment, but walking in the nature or swimming or meeting with friends or cooking and enjoying meals.
Yes, very nice. Yeah, all those things actually. And it's lovely if you have multiple things, then that multiplies the happy, like, what makes you happy.
I like to plan travels. It doesn't matter with who, my lover, my friend, but planning. And then to enjoy it when in a different way, because it's people who I normally stay, but it's in a different way.
I think looking forward to something is fantastic, isn't it? I also like this. I like to watch videos about the place, I read about the place I'm going, and somehow that's part of the fantasy, isn't it? When you get there, hopefully it's as good as you feel. Sometimes not, but that's also a nice process.
It's called imaginative hedonism. There's the concept of that the anticipation of something happening gives you more pleasure than actually happening.
Yeah, sometimes
So
when
you
I'm there.
your expectations and preparation.
It's not as quite as good. That's why in January in England, when the weather's really bad, they always put the adverts for the next holiday, and people are dreaming of the beach, probably in Spain. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I can't wait till July, and I'm going to the beach. Right? When it can happen.
Walking on the beach.
Walking on the beach.
Any beach, anytime.
Any beach, anytime. Yeah.
Winter time, summertime, autumn time, springtime, rain, whatever.
Nice.
Walking on the beach.
Yeah.
Which I don't have, so that's why it's so.
That's why you like it so much. So this is it, isn't it? I mean, everybody has different things, but I think if you think like probably, it doesn't matter if you're Spanish or you're British or Hungarian, there are many things that are quite universal that make us happy, and it can be nature or going to the sea or good food or friends, so planning travel and so forth. So it can be, drinking a beer, it can be going to a yoga club, it can be just sitting watching TV with a glass of wine with your partner, or even alone is also nice. It can be connecting to nature through exercise or just relaxation. It can be sleeping longer in the morning. So my other teenage son, his best thing is to sleep longer in the morning at the week. Oh, thank goodness, I don't have to get up at 6 o'clock, bit more sleep. Sleep's a big issue, isn't it? There are special sleep clinics now because people have a lot of problems sleeping. How many of you would say you're a really good sleeper? Who sleeps 7-8 hours every night peacefully? Quite a lot, not so much. Not everybody, no. I mean, there's a lot of people now having some sleep problems as well. Many of my students, quite young, in their 20s, sleep problems. I think it's technology probably a little bit overstimulated, right? And so getting more sleep is quite crucial for many people. The research is showing at least 7 hours a night, right? And, being with friends, whether it's having a cup of tea, and all life stages. We know from happiness studies, long-term happiness studies, the most important thing is not even health, it's social connections. It's family, it's friends, it's having people to trust and rely on throughout your whole life stages. And, as you get older, it can get a bit harder. Often people have fewer friends, especially men, and there's a bit of a loneliness crisis now as well. So that's also an issue. There's not that much, but it's interesting later, the research shows that solo travel tends to be more transformational, which is a bit of a strange contradiction to the social research. So should we travel alone? The industry's not been so good at catering for single people, I think, in the past, but now, good question. Solo travel is something we should think about.
I've seen the social content of that, because you might have your services that solo travelers come, the micro communities that are being created by solo travelers who come together at a certain package, and they create that micro community for a day or a week or a retreat or whatever it is. That's the social context. It's not the back home context, it's the new context where they create a new community. So it's solo, but at the same time social.
Yeah, retreats usually you meet like-minded people, don't you, in a setting, so you have 10 people who are interested in mindfulness and spirituality. Yeah, and also backpacking communities. I don't know if any of you went, maybe not even when you were younger, but sometime went backpacking, whole backpacker communities, and you share tips about travel and maybe travel together for 2 or 3 days, and then you go on your way alone again. Yeah, but it's nice talking to Edgar about the pilgrimage to Santiago. Do you do it alone? Do you do it with a friend? Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, isn't it? Is it really for you personally, or is that kind of a joint activity, or maybe a bit of both? Yeah.
Depends on the experience.
Depends what you need as well, right?
Something about mindfulness, maybe you need to stay with your own, but if you're going to visit that city, maybe you prefer to go with with more people
Mm.
enjoy the experience. It's different, depends on
It
the.
depends what you need. Again, I think this is the whole point, isn't it? It depends on where you are in your life. It depends on what your needs are at that moment.
I would
Yeah.
say that even if you are doing the pilgrimage alone or you want to be alone, it's almost impossible because the meaning itself of the pilgrimage is to feel also this sense of communitas.
Ah, yes.
So even at some point you're going to celebrate together with other pilgrims.
Yes.
So and I think that this is part also of the pilgrimage.
Yeah.
There is a philosopher I like a lot. Well, I'm not sure philosopher, Satish Kumar, and he has a very interesting book. The title is Tourist or Pilgrims.
Ah, yes.
And he has a very good sentence that he says that tourists always complain and pilgrims always celebrate.
Ah.
I'm not sure if it's always, but I think this is very good.
That's really interesting, isn't it? So we should see ourselves more as pilgrims, I think, if we really want to have a good experience. Yeah. I mean, and travel, you know, talking about planning travel and travelling itself can also be important. But if you see quality of life studies, wellbeing studies, people forget about travel. So we did some studies on that, and they'll say family, friends, they'll say finances or other issues. Travel, they don't think about until maybe the bottom. But you mentioned travel. Most people in the studies don't mention travel, actually. And then they go, oh, yeah, of course, travel is important. So our everyday life is important, but of course we're working in tourism, most of us. So how do we then get people to come and do something in a different context and get something they can maybe take back to their everyday life? So that is also the business, I think, of wellness and well-being. Later to talk a little bit also about transformation and how far that happens. So we have a few social issues around burnout. Many people I speak to in cities feel very tired. Most people I know living in cities say they're exhausted, they don't sleep that well, life's too fast, too much technology. The other point is it's quite hard sometimes to convert people to a so-called healthy lifestyle. And you know, people are putting it off, you know, I'll do it when I'm older or I'll do it later. You know, and it's a good question, hedonism, having a nice time in the moment, being happy in the moment, seems like the best strategy. But Greek philosophy says that's not enough. So Aristotle says happiness should also be more than that. It should also be somewhat transformational. It should also be about doing something for somebody else. A little bit altruistic, giving back to nature or to society. So it's a good question, isn't it? Is it enough just to sort of think about ourselves and what makes us happy in the moment? Then we've given everything up to live longer, but then the life's not so great. So what do? We have a short, fun life, or we have a long life where we're a bit more careful, or we try to get a little bit of balance in our life. And this is challenging, right? So you go on holiday, are you looking for really healthy food? Or are you thinking, I'll eat all my favourite things, I'll eat as much as I can in the buffet? Difficult. There are now healthy hotels offering healthy choices, but is the holiday the time to really restrict yourself or not? Probably not. Another quote, yeah. This is the balance about eating desserts. So eating chocolate's beneficial for your health, but I gained 5 pounds. So can we be a little bit larger and a bit happier and still eat chocolate? Or again, we have to limit ourselves a little bit. So it's very difficult, isn't it, to balance everything out. This is a joke because actually I'm here with my husband and my son. Not necessarily travelling alone. Usually we gain benefit from travelling with other people or from being with others, but sometimes maybe you do feel you want some time alone, you need to get away. This is the whole concept of retreating, isn't it? Get away from life. And it might mean, sadly, your partner, your family, because you need to find yourself, focus on yourself, even just calm down, relax. Yeah. So there's a few issues we have to consider in our lives, in our leisure, decisions we make, and then in our travel, and what can we offer in our travel. In terms of defining wellbeing, I quite like this Gallup Wellbeing Index. You've probably seen it, it's used globally. And what I like about this is the idea of purpose, liking what you do every day. You said that you like what you do every day, you're doing the right thing. Yeah, having a purpose, being motivated. We've mentioned the social. We have to mention the economic and financial. Even the Dalai Lama recognised you need enough money to have quite a good life, but you don't need to be much richer than that to be happier. So we know that once you reach a certain level of income, your happiness does not go up that much. So millionaires are not that much happier than people who are on an average, a little bit above average income. On the other hand, now most of us are struggling to pay the prices compared to the salaries. And I guess it's the same here as in Hungary, as in Britain, right? So this is a challenge. The financial at the moment is not easy. Community. Now, this is a difficult one, isn't it? What's a community these days? We talked about communitas. Would you say there's a community around those who live in Girona? Is there a community here? You feel a sense of community, and if you do, where does it come from? Is it online? Is it face-to-face? Is it around activities, maybe? Difficult word these days, isn't it? I asked my students the other day, do you know your neighbour? They said, not really. It's a big city. You never spoke to your neighbour living in flats, for example. But they have a sense of community around being a student or being in certain hobby groups, maybe, or interest groups, possibly. And creating communities, as László said, around travel, or as Sylvia said, around certain activities. And then the physical, of course, physical health. I'm talking about food and exercise and having energy. Now we talk quite a lot about energy and vitality. In the Netherlands, they have vitality studies. What do you think, what does that mean to you, vitality? Does that have a meaning? There's a whole degree program in the Netherlands around vitality. So it's something to do with energy, isn't it? And maybe, I think it's some wellbeing studies talk about flourishing. So not just kind of existing and doing okay, but really living your best life. I don't like that expression, but doing what you think you should be doing and then finding meaning and having enough energy. Get up in the morning and feeling enthusiastic. I want to do this, right, what I'm doing. Not everybody has that feeling, right? How's life in Spain? Right, now this is what OECD said in 2020. Now, of course, this was the COVID time, so it was a little bit misrepresentative, but they did the research before COVID. So what's good about Spain, this is compared to other OECD countries. Here sees that life expectancy, I think it's the best in Europe, isn't it? The highest. That's good, right? That's good news, I think. As long as you're having a nice, enjoying the long life, right? Time off and working hours, I think this is quite positive. But some of the things that are not good are economic. So around maybe salaries, employment, jobs, that's a bit, it's been difficult, right? Had difficult economic situations. And interestingly, it seems around housing. When I was in Barcelona for a city conference, most of the discussions were about how expensive the housing is and how people can't afford the housing, and how unfortunately the Catalan government wanted to keep the rents lower, and they couldn't keep them lower because there was a national decision to raise the rent. So most of the discussions were about housing prices. In the Netherlands now, they can't take more foreign students because they've got no housing for students. So housing, economics, not so great, but social connections, very good, which is really great. Feeling safe and things like that. So there's a lot of good things. People not sure about their health, education is okay. If it was Finland, we might see education looks fantastic, or I don't know. But Spain's social, time off, life expectancy, maybe work-life balance is not bad. That's suffering a bit economically, not necessarily because of that, but because the salaries maybe don't match the cost of living, like most places, unfortunately now. I don't know if anyone saw this. This is another wellbeing model. Just to make the point, we were talking about spirituality, and often spirituality is missing, isn't it, from wellness or well-being, because in the West or in Europe, we're not quite sure what that means. If you're not religious, what does it mean? So this is for the South Pacific, but I rather like this because some of it's the same for us: exercise, healthcare, healthy diet. Some of it is not feeling rushed, at peace, socializing. But that's quite nice. Drawing strength from spiritual power, connecting to others through prayer, following principles of sharing and caring. That's nice, isn't it? So spirituality is about giving back or being with others. That's kind of also the basis of religion tradition, isn't it? That you should do some charity. And this comes back to the Greek philosophical idea that happiness should be more than hedonic and pleasure. It should be giving back. And the research shows that if you volunteer and help other people, you're happier, right? But we have to know this and do this and be aware of this. This is why I say happiness is a little bit of work, I think. So many of those things could be for all countries, but the spiritual I like in this one. Lifestyle trends affecting well-being. So trend something that's fashionable or popular right now, right? So fitness trend, diet trend, we could also call it something like a habit. We could also call it like an activity that people are finding fashionable at the moment also. Usually influenced by media, social media. What do you think at the moment are the main trends or the main preoccupations or focus in people's lives? What's affecting your business maybe? What's affecting your hobbies, your travel choices? Anything you think is really fashionable right now or popular in food, maybe in travel habits? Anything you think that might be interesting here? I mean, the question is sustainability. Is it a trend, or is there something within sustainability that's fashionable now? Or I don't like the word fashionable because it makes it seem like it wouldn't continue. Like being ethical shouldn't be like fashionable.
I think that lifestyle in general, like follow a well-being lifestyle when it comes to dietary, physique, socialize. I mean the lifestyle. Lifestyle,
Yeah, and you think people are becoming more conscious of trying to live a bit more healthy, yeah.
And after COVID, even more, I think that's right. So COVID's one thing. Why is the life expectancy so long in Spain? What are you doing right? There must be some good habits, right, in Spain, no? Why are people living that? You think it's the sunshine? Could be it. Yes, yeah. Do you still have a siesta? Do you have time? No, it's true though. In south of Spain, like some of the shops are closed, aren't they, between 12 and 4? People do rest, right?
Yeah, this comes from the people that used to work in the fields and with crops and so on. Because in summer and spring, at midday, that's hot. Then they cannot work, or they could not work. And they have to start working very early in the morning. This was the sun rise. So that's why but there are some places here that still also And they still do this. Yeah, I think resting is important. We probably
I understand why the rest of the world doesn't do the same.
Doesn't do the same.
You can rest a little bit.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's so inspiring thing. I don't know.
It makes sense because, you know, biologically we're tired, aren't we? 2 o'clock between 2 and 3, not very productive, right?
30 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. Like, so we call it a power nap now. I think they have 20 minutes. But yeah, maybe resting in the afternoon is good. I think the food is quite healthy here, though, no?
The Mediterranean diet, I think that.
Mediterranean diet is good.
But you know, the Mediterranean diet doesn't apply to the Italians or Greeks. And they also have a Mediterranean diet. So that's in the same, you know, geographically, in the same location.
Italian eat less, and at 12. They only eat something so much, so they don't need to rest.
Yeah, but
After
in Spain,
we make a paella.
Yeah, all right.
It takes time, right? And then you go.
So the first time we can have dinner is 11 p.m. You can't have dinner before 10 or 11 p.m. And for me, it's just impossible. I just genetically cannot eat dinner at 11. I just can't do it.
But am I right now? The Spanish government is debating whether or not the eating time should be earlier in Spain. What do you think about this? That they said it's too late.
I think the thing is changing. What is really the diet from Mediterranean?
Yeah.
People think first about olive oil.
Yes.
But actually, people ate a lot of legumes. What is that?
Yeah, beans.
Whole meal
Yes.
cereals. It was not pasta and not white rice, but now people doing white rice. Paellas doing mostly with white rice.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
it's not. A lot of people come to my place to say they are not very having the good health and they're living quite a while here in this place. And, maybe it's better than another place like in England. More veggies here. We have different times during the whole year. We can plant. We can have veggies from kilometer zero. But we have as well the veggies from the south of Spain with a whole of chemical things in it, and the way they do it, the plastic and all stuff.
Yes.
You really have to look who is doing really a Mediterranean style or not.
I guess that's
We lose it.
it.
It's
Yeah.
like the Japanese. The Japanese, they have one of the best food for long health, for long lifetime, but they introduce sugar, they introduce milk and all the stuff they're not used to eat. And
You know,
it gets down as well.
the leanest people in the world are South Koreans in terms of body fat, the BMI, and they're the leanest people because of
They
diet.
rest themselves a lot.
They have diet, so you would say that that's brilliant, so they will live long, but actually they don't. And there's two things, one is stress, which, you know, the work ethic, it's crazy in South Korea. And the second is fermented food, because the kimchi, and so you are very lean, but the highest percentage of stomach cancer.
And they
In the
lose the
population.
fertility of women.
So it's, so, you know, it's always a balance, that
Yeah.
there's always a cause and effect situation that,
What's that?
so again,
Why they had,
the fermentation. The fermentation, because it eats so much fermented food,
Oh, it's
that
acid.
it, yes, and it accelerates and your chances of having a stomach cancer.
And then combined with the stress of the
It's a
overwork,
combination
I
between
guess.
fermentation and spicy, because
Yeah.
if you really eat
Yeah,
a
the
really
chilies and
kimchi,
all that.
they're very hot.
Yeah.
They are used to it. If you use one of them, you say, oh my God.
And you have 17 different kimchi.
And 12 cuts of seafood.
Yeah, very-
That's a lot of this better.
Yeah. So when you look at it from outside, oh, that's very lean and very, you know, there's no body fat, everybody's sort of looking good, and the skincare is mental, you know. Facial skincare in South Korea is absolutely mental. So it's every 5 meters you find a skincare shop, because you must look, you know, the K-beauty, the G-beauty,
K-pop
and the
stuff.
P-beauty, you know, the Korean beauty, Chinese beauty, and Japanese beauty, there's all of massive competition. So you need to look glowing at all times. And the combination of all of that, you look good, but at the same time, there's a high chance of having stomach cancer. It's like, how does that work?
And that's I think the whole point about the beauty industry as well is like, what are your motivations for this? Is it because you don't feel good about yourself? So if you're 40 years old and you want to look like a 20-year-old K-pop star, psychologically, this is not a good direction. I feel, you know, it's nice to want to look good, but if you don't feel adequate, you don't feel enough, and your self-esteem is very low, then the beauty industry is not very healthy, actually. So in wellness, there's a lot of beauty and there's cosmetic surgery, but the reasons that people have it, I think, psychologically are sometimes not so fantastic. So this is why, although the body positive movement's a little bit criticised for promoting obesity, I like the fact that it was making people feel better in their skin or feeling better about themselves. Because I think Instagram, it has a lot of negative impacts on people and how they feel about themselves, especially young people, right? So I think, yeah, beauty is an interesting one, isn't it? So this K-beauty is okay, but also whitening your skin is not so healthy either. And who said that, you know, everybody should have sort of chalk white base? I know, of course, you know, people were using harmful products in the past as well, like the geisha women as well. But this is also not a healthy direction. So being a bit happy with ourselves, I think. Those who just came, welcome. Sorry, I just wanted to say hi to everybody who's here. We're just talking about trends in well-being, and it's really nice to see you again. Some of you, I know you, some of you I haven't met before. But we were just talking a little bit about this, and we've also got into the cross-cultural issues. And I was asking why Spain had such a long life expectancy and what were some of the positive trends, I think, in Spain. But maybe there is somehow the social is still very important, and that this sort of work-life balance maybe is better in Spain. Economically, maybe it's not so good, but on the other hand, who wants to be wealthy and unhealthy? This is a issue, isn't it? So again, it's thinking about the balance in all these things. This study I thought was quite interesting. It came out very recently, and this was for youth trends. I haven't looked at the exact age, but there's quite a good study. It's mainly, I think, Z and millennials. But they were talking about sustainability and ethics, which is not surprising, I think. Holistic well-being, this is quite interesting. And this seems to be the kind of healthy, you were saying about lifestyle, healthy lifestyle trends are really important. So it can be fitness, it can be food. Mental health, so mental health and wellness. I think how we feel is very important, even about our bodies, you know. I mean, I think a lot of the time people who are obsessing about diet and fitness, it's often because they don't feel good about their body. It's not because they necessarily want to be healthy. Wanderlust, that's good, that's travel. They're good, they want to travel, they want to see the world, they want to have new experiences. And then personalisation, so feeling a bit special, feeling like an individual. And there's quite a lot written also, isn't there, about co-creation, being involved in your own travel decisions. And I think in wellness, we can personalise quite a lot, especially luxury wellness, but even retreats, I think, because it's very much about yourself and your own needs, and you go with your motivations and your personality and your particular lifestyle or life stage issues. So it's quite a personalised industry. And this quotation I thought was quite good to make us realise that, yes, growing interest in wellness, whether it's growing business, I don't know, growing interest in health, fitness, nutrition, appearance, how we look, hopefully in a healthy way, sleep and mental health. So that's quite an interesting report, I would say, to have a look at if you want to look at youth trends. And these are our future existing and future markets. But a bit less about alpha. That alpha is coming up, and we'll see what they want to do later. So, in a summary, we talked about what makes you happy. We talked about what we think the trends are. I do think this self-development transformation is very interesting, and this is part of wanting to be happier and healthier, but it's also about thinking about how can we lead the life we really want to lead, where are the barriers to that, where are the challenges of that. And probably we need to go away from home sometimes, do a pilgrimage, go to a retreat, have 3 days in a spa, walk in nature to clear our head, just sit and look at the sea and think, I'm leading a life. What are we doing? Why have I got this job? Why don't I do something else? Why don't I move to Girona and run a restaurant or whatever it may be? You know, why am I living in a landlocked country in a city when I could be by the sea and doing something else? And thinking as you get older, maybe time gets more important than money as well. You know, maybe ambition becomes a bit less important. So the life stage is still there. And of course, how we manage stress, how we manage aging. We were talking about healthy food. Probably you've seen the blue zone reports, where people are living longest in the world. And of course, many of them living by the sea, many of them living in quite small locations, villages, having very good social connections, eating a lot of legumes, actually, beans and these kinds of things. What's difficult about that, and we found this, we went to Sardinia on holiday, we talked to the younger generation, they said, we can't really live like that now, because there aren't enough jobs in Sardinia. So we can work here in the summer, and then the rest of the year we have to go to mainland Italy and work there. So we can't stay with our grandparents and our parents and just have a nice relaxing life working on the land and drinking, you know, the local wine, which is very healthy. Unfortunately, life now, it's not so possible to live the blue zone life. We can take some elements into other places, and this is what they're trying to do with the blue zone concept. But yeah, but maybe Spain has quite a lot of elements of blue zone living in a way. Maybe.
Concerning that you are talking about, I think not long ago I read that Singapore became a blue zone.
Oh.
And I was, how is it possible? Singapore, you know, a big city, it has nothing to do with the traditional blue zones that we knew. I don't know if you know something about that.
Singapore it wants to be the first wellness city. It's not a blue zone. They want to, there's a government agenda to create a wellness city. They don't quite know how. I spoke to them in person a couple of months ago, and they've actually admitted that they don't really, there's no roadmap or strategy or anything of how to actually achieve it, but this is kind of a lovely vision that we would love to be. a wellness city per se, or wellness community per se, but it's more like they have a wellness festival every year or a month, I think. A wellness festival is more like on visibility and fitness and physical aspects of it, but it's just a dream at the moment. It's not an actual happening thing. No, that's not
And
really
it's
happening.
quite, and Singapore's quite carefully controlled, isn't it? So it's not so, people are not so free to do whatever they want. But I did see a really interesting housing development, and we always talk about 15-minute cities. So Girona's probably going to do, you can walk everywhere to the university, to the shops, to the school. There, they had a housing development, and they were trying to make sure that older people living in the housing development would meet somebody every day. So there were sort of shops, and there were cafes, and there were spaces, social spaces. So trying to have housing developments where people would interact better, and not just live in their separate apartment or on the top floor and never see anybody. So maybe that way of trying to integrate older people into the population, or make sure that everybody met more regularly in social spaces within housing, and everything was walking distance, so you didn't have to go by car. That's also part of the well-being agenda, probably. But it's a good question whether psychologically.
You know, the line in South Arabia, the Now project, it also based on a 15-minute city community scenario. You know that story? There's a 150-kilometer long city.
In the desert.
So it's not a circular city, it's the line.
Yeah.
It's called the line, from the Red Sea down to the middle of Saudi with the mountains. They also have this 15-minute idea, except that it really is like a massive wall, like a Berlin Wall, but twice, and people live between the walls. It's absolutely surreal. And when you go beyond the walls, it's desert. It's like nothing, absolutely nothing. And you will need to live between 200-meter tall walls, which I absolutely would hate personally. Yeah, he likes to be on the other side of the wall, not within the wall. And so it's the next. I think it's more like a stunt, the Saudi stunt. So everybody's talking about it, and I don't think it's going to happen as we're doing from the people on the ground. But the whole idea is to live between walls. It's like a voluntary. What is it? Prison.
Yeah.
Because you cannot go beyond that, because there's nothing there. So you need to be in it, inside, and imagine how much sunlight you may have when you have 200-meter walls, both sides. So how much sunlight you get, natural light, between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, if you're lucky. And then before and after, 0, because of the walls. So
in theory, everything's 50 minutes, like traveling. There's a fast
there would be an underground thing, because it's a line, so you would need to go along.
It's supposed to be sustainable, which is hard to imagine.
In Saudi, yes, obviously everything is sustainable in Saudi.
You have to ask questions also about that, you know, how sustainable this is. And I always think it's about Dubai, you know, I have a sort of few issues about traveling there, you know, in making conscious decisions about where we go. And I always feel like if it doesn't feel like a sustainable development, you know, you want to look behind that. So people go, oh, Dubai is fantastic. And I think, yeah, you know, there's like an ice dome there, and then you see like the construction workers, how they were treated when they were building the facilities, and somehow that creates for me a very bad energy about a place, and I feel like I somehow also want to boycott it. So this side of ethical travel and responsibility, also making conscious decisions about where we go, knowing something about it. But that assumes we're all educated in tourism, and we all have read articles about how employees are treated, which not everybody is doing, but still I think as conscious travellers we should think about the ethics of where we go as well, maybe. Yeah, even flying now, there's a lot of climate shaming. I think, am I right that the Spanish government said that now you could not fly to a destination if there was a good train line? So they're trying to stop the budget airline. In France, they did that.
Here they were trying, but.
Oh, they didn't manage, because here I read they were trying to do it, but was there like a protest about it? Did France manage to say that they tried to cut the budget?
2 hours train, you can't fly.
2 hours train, you can't fly. I don't know what you think about that. I mean, I guess it makes a lot of sense, but sometimes it costs a lot more, as you know, also to go by train. And I think I was trying to get to Rotterdam from Budapest, and I needed 7 changes of train, and it cost double. And then it's the time money question, isn't it? And then your responsibility and your ethics, and we always, again, it's the trade-off, isn't it, between one and the other. Yeah.
So some of the trends, there are others, László will definitely talk about more trends. Wellness is a path to well-being. So we sometimes talk about these dimensions of wellness. And I just had a few suggestions about how if we use the word wellness, how that might work out. So often when we talk about wellness, we're talking about people making decisions to go for beauty treatments in spas or relaxing in thermal waters. In the case of Hungary, going for healing treatments in waters, fitness of some kind, even in nature. Emotional, so some of what Edgar's doing around mindfulness or counselling, some form of guided activities and retreats. Spiritual activities could also be pilgrimage in there, maybe travelling with family or going to group activities when you arrive in a destination as well. And then thinking about some of the issues around work-life balance, we might need help with that, with our stress relief. So a massage might be enough, but does that help us when we go home? One massage is okay, but then when we get home, we also need to think about strategies for coping, for saying no, or for giving ourselves a bit more space, or for making the decision to cut our hours at work, or something like this. So maybe we need some sort of work-life balance retreat possibly as well. And then the intellectual, we know now that as people get older, they must keep their mind active, otherwise we have problems with dementia, for example. So more creative activities. We were talking with Edgar today about maybe going to painting workshop or doing something creative, making things, cooking courses. And psychological workshops, certainly you may have been to some of these where you sit in a circle, talk about your feelings, problems. More women go. Men don't always like sitting in a circle talking about their problems, but sort of encouraging men to do that more, a little bit more. But yeah, there's no shortage of people who are happy to do that. But it used to be the case it was more, I would say, middle-aged people, 40 plus. Now I'm not sure. Maybe young people are more open to talking about their psychological health, maybe.
I think this is something changing about that. I think.
Yeah.
I think that people now, something at least here, especially in my people, recently or in the last years, people start talking more about mental problems, and maybe some years ago it was like a taboo to talk about that.
Yes.
Now it's not strange to talk with someone and tell that someone who's going to a therapist, a psychology or psychologist or whatever. I personally recommend that.
Yes, I think
that everybody
yes.
needs to. It's good to talk with someone that listens to you in a, you know, in a environmental. Environmental. No, it's not the word I'm looking for. In a safe place.
Yes, yes.
Somebody that's
safe environment would be okay.
Exactly,
Yeah.
safe environment where nobody, person just listening, not judging and giving you some good advices sometimes. I think it's good for the stress, but anxiety, a lot of the problems that we talk that affects our wellness.
Yes, I think it's a really good point you make, and in some ways maybe it's kind of good to go away from home to do that, because you go to a safe space somewhere outside home, you talk to people that you don't necessarily know, but then somehow everybody's very supportive.
If you allow me to add something,
yeah,
I never went to a therapist, and 1 year ago when I lost my job and I got a crisis, and I think it was a very good decision to start going, because I felt the difference, a huge difference, and I recommend that for everybody.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. And I think this is what we need more of, like kind of destigmatization, that it feels okay, and especially for men, I think, to go, because usually I can't talk about my problems with other men, and there's a lot of studies about how men generally, they might talk to women about that problem, but not to other men, because that's not the topic that you would choose to talk about in the pub or I don't know where. So this I think is really important, especially there are a few worrying statistics about it used to be the case, probably the U-bend theory, and I wrote a bit about this, but like in life, when you're 20 and 70, apparently you're kind of almost equally happy, but there's a U-bend when you get to midlife, the most unhappy because you have, I don't know, midlife crisis, or I don't know, aging parents and dependent children. So, but then recently the studies showed it's actually younger people, and especially around COVID time,
younger people, 18 to 25, are now probably the most depressed and anxious. So this is something we really need to work on, I think, with young people. And this is the age of our students, if we're teaching and so forth. Yes, time, I realise now. Are you feeling right? Do you need a break yet? Or we're okay for another 15 minutes maybe, and then maybe we can think about having a bit of a break, yeah? Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry, very, very interactive and nice. But this is a good point, isn't it? Thinking about who are the markets and can we get more younger people, younger men to engage in these activities, maybe where they talk more about wellness or where they do activities for wellness. But certainly, László's men's wellness study shows that there are ways of doing that. I don't know if you want to comment at this moment, as we're talking about, not now, later, right? Okay. Yeah, but I think, you know, even in the routes through here, you have a lot of cycling, it could be through sport, it could be through outdoor recreation, combined with some, not therapy, we don't need to call it therapy, we can call it something else, but yeah. Maybe we don't need the word wellness. We can talk about self-care. Certainly, I know László has the word self-care also in his presentation, looking after ourselves. So, you know, something where we have rest and relaxation, light immune-boosting food, maybe, especially after COVID, this was important. Gentle exercise. I always laugh about the light food because in spas in Hungary, people have like very heavy, very sort of calorific food, and it really surprises me because when I go to a spa, I would eat something very light, like a salad, but not like 3 courses and coffee and wine. So it's a bit surprising. We need to move a little bit away from that. So I think feeling a bit lighter, as you get older, you have to eat less, sadly, and you should eat less, about 60% of what you ate when you were 20, which is a bit disappointing, but you can still have a little bit of everything. Outdoor spaces, as we said, you know, gardens, there's lots of work now around community gardens, nature and so forth, digital free zones so that we disconnect a bit from our gadgets. It does seem to be the case, even from that report I was talking about with young people, they do want to switch off. And sometimes my students say, I had an amazing holiday where I had 4 days and I wasn't on my phone and we did, you know, we were doing, you know, nature-based activities and canoeing and I felt so good and I didn't need to document it all the time. And I thought, that was a surprise to me, because I thought, I sort of have half my life without documenting anything. Now I have to be on Facebook and say, I'm here, I'm there, and Girona's lovely, and the food was amazing. But maybe not every minute of every day. So I think I now see technology like any other addiction, like alcohol or food or anything. You have to manage it, don't you? And you have to limit it. Because realise what's good for your health, I think. And then the kind of things some of you are doing, mindfulness workshops, stress management, and so forth. And just spaces, you know, as you said, safe spaces, repeatable spiritual meditation. So let's look after ourselves a bit better. You can decide what the label should be, I think, for your facility or for your own purposes. Is it wellness? Wellness still makes you think a little bit of luxury spas. Wellbeing sounds a little bit like we're thinking about the sort of whole of society's issues. So is it self-care? Is it self-gifting? Is it something else? We also have some really nice concepts coming out. We started to talk a bit about the blue zones, we've been talking a bit about culture. Probably you saw all these different types of wellness concepts. László has how many you've collected?
42.
42, which we won't talk about now. But if you want an explanation of some of them you would already know. This article is quite good as an introduction, but many of them around having sort of cosy experiences. Some of it's about just having coffee and a cake. Some of it's about the Japanese constant improvement, little bit of improvement every day. Mindfulness, you probably know, of being, you know, in the moment, appreciating things. Some of them are around community and social issues, especially the African one. Norwegian, about getting out into the fresh air. Many of the others are about the cosy Nordic experiences in the cold winter where you can be inside and with friends and so forth. Question is, you know, is it a lifestyle? Is it one pocket full of happiness? What are the concepts? We've talked a bit about Spain. Is there anything you would say about Catalonia you would say that is a little bit different? Is there anything you do that you would, is there a wellness concept?
You don't necessarily need to call it a wellness concept. It's more like traditional ways which make people everyday life kind of cozy, simple, pleasant, pleasantry.
A tradition, a ritual, a habit, or something nice that every. No. siesta. But it could be just, because you don't have this sort of, because in Central Europe you have this sort of afternoon 4 o'clock, like, you know, the English have like tea, so afternoon tea, they'd have like tea and cake at about 4 o'clock. Maybe in Vienna or Budapest it would be coffee, or the Germans would do the same, coffee and cake ritual, no? I don't know if you still do this kind of German coffee cake.
Often what we did this thing for with Melanie is that, same as with the Blue Zones, they tried to commodify these concepts to sell. But the Blue Zone, you need to live there to actually have the benefit of the Blue Zone. You can't do it in 2 days. It doesn't work like that. And we had a massive argument with, I don't know, with I think Six Senses, not long ago. He said, for God's sake, stop the bullshit. You can't sell Blue Zone because it will be a 5-day package. And what impact is it going to make? I mean, you need to have the community, you need to have the food, you need to have all of it together for 70 years to have any kind of impact, not 5 days. I mean, anyway, but they commodify. So the idea is that, is it something that, even with the, UdG logo, you can't make it something that other people can see? Gemütlichkeit. I mean, tell me how it is to show someone who doesn't speak German and doesn't have any kind of reference to Germany. It's like, what is it? Is it difficult? So we have all these lifestyle.
You make a German bakery.
Yeah, German bakery, yes. In Europe, for example, it's part of the
but they are quite nice. Not local.
The idea is that you need to give some sort of local flavor, kind of impulse. That this is what local people do to keep themselves in check, happy, balanced, whatever you want to call it. But what is it that you can introduce to guests, one-time guests who come there for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, that, oh, so this is what you do. And I'm not talking about, some mock-up flamenco shows which have nothing to do with authenticity, because that's just, terrific point. I know not here, but, Andalusia or whatever. But is it something that you can give a tasting of, oh, so that's what you do? It's very difficult to translate in a context to someone who doesn't speak the language, doesn't stay here for long, and still would find it relevant, interesting, inspiring, transformative, whatever word you want to use, to give this half an hour condensed Catalonian-ness, which is very difficult to do. It's possible, but you have to work on it. You have to create one probably, which is a condensated something. And then, most countries wouldn't sell Ubuntu experiences. Like, that's not how it works. Or Huawei, and you can't really translate it to something. But, this is a lovely project for hotels or for regions.
So the Taula, expliquer aux autres.
Which is,
After dinner, the lunch, you stay,
give me the details. Give me the details. How long, what food, what's necessary for it? Give me
very
the...
long, and it's not established.
there is not a specific period.
And then after eating, you still sit on the table and
just
talking
talk.
with the others, so you can easily just extend it.
It's not good for restaurants. They don't give out.
2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, normally you do a coffee and just go, no? And in our case, stay more time.
Stay and talk.
Yeah, talk. Not another.
That's very interesting. I'm just wondering, in China, would you do that? Would you sit for a long time around food? Would you have it? Because I heard that in China the service is quite quick, but would you sit for 2 or 3 hours chatting after a meal?
I think it depends. If
Oh,
it's
okay.
a business lunch, then we will finish quite fast.
Okay.
But if it's like a gathering, then informal gathering, then we may spend hours, 3 or 4 or even 5 hours in the separate room, having dinner and talk for until midnight.
Yeah, but that's what the non-locals cannot do. You can't just throw in some French people into a lovely Catalonian table. And, oh, by the way, here's a you can't do that. Or, they're roasting at all.
Give them some hand and a glass of wine by the sea and they're happy, right?
So you can find that, for example, the serving of the food is so extended, so you force them to stay longer. So you can orchestrate.
This will make the pika.
Yeah, you can orchestrate such situations that you find themselves doing the same thing, but you can't just do it because it doesn't work like that. Don't have the reference onto language. So it's difficult to translate it.
I mean, what's nice about this in terms of globalization and the fact that we understand a lot more about different cultures is we can kind of pick and mix the things that we really like about cultures and use them in everyday life. But if you want people to come to your location and you know, come to Catalonia and have a certain experience, you have to do something that's kind of unique or local. So then it becomes slightly more challenging, doesn't it? So you're not going to you know, offer them a concept that's coming from Denmark or from Norway. You want to give them something that's typically either Leaf Spanish, Catalonian, whatever that might be. And that is a bit more difficult, although the food is already maybe something. Maybe it's something in the gastronomy, or something in the types of wine, or something within the landscape that's different from other places. So this is always the question, isn't it? But it's an interesting idea that we keep trying to sort of come up with these wellness concepts, or to call them wellness concepts, and whether or not we can find something for even your region or your village or whatever that might be. I guess Catalonia, a lot of the time people would come for festivals. So they'd be very culturally specific. Whether that's wellness is another question, but a lot of people want to come and experience the festivals, for example, which are really unique. I don't know if you want lots of tourists coming, but you know, if you have the capacity, yes. But yeah. Right, how are we feeling? Do we need a break? I think probably. So welcome back. I want to time for László, of course, because he also has a lot of interesting things to say, and I've really, really enjoyed the interaction. I just now want to connect just a bit to what's happening in tourism and tourism theory, because we hear a lot about regenerative tourism, and it's something we can kind of think about. But obviously it's connected somehow to sustainable development, and we know that one of the goals of sustainable development is about good health and well-being. But regenerative tourism is trying to go a little bit beyond sustainability. And there are quite a few practitioners, researchers who are talking about, can we use tourism to make life better actually in destinations and improve life for local people? So the idea is maybe that we try to develop activities that are more in harmony with the environment, more in harmony with localities and the people. So destination success is measured in terms of well-being instead of other factors, and even tourism economists are saying that we should go beyond GDP, and we should really put resident well-being at the centre of everything we do. And I mean, I guess those of you from Barcelona probably agree that maybe we should have thought a bit earlier about resident well-being. But in tourism, we don't know the tipping point from a sort of economically successful destination to one that becomes a bit unlivable for locals. And we talked a bit with Edgar this morning, like, how do we know the limit? Like, if you're running a retreat, you can bring 10 people, that's okay. But what if everybody from the coast wants to come from a day trip? So it's difficult, isn't it, to get that balance. So this is one model that has been proposed about community first, ecosystem integrity and respecting biodiversity, and then inclusive business models and so forth. And then, of course, ethics and responsibility. We, a couple of years ago, came up with this idea that this is based a bit on what we were talking about this morning, that in tourism, of course, we want to have fun and relaxation. But if we go back to the idea of the Greek philosophy, Aristotle, eudaimonic well-being would be more about educating ourselves, making responsible choices and self-development, becoming better people and looking after also others. And then maybe utilitarian is, I don't know if it's a good word, but it's where we make decisions that are about being more equitable, being a bit more socially responsible, caring about others. And we also put this into a kind of a spectrum where we've got the individual at one end having quite hedonic activities, having parties, for example, in beach destinations or cities. We have people going for wellness treatments, trying to be, you know, more beautiful and so forth. And then some combinations. Maybe Girona is a place where this happens. You do some cultural tourism. You also go to the beach. But are you giving anything back? Are you getting to this eudaimonic that you're doing volunteer tourism, for example? And then transformational, and even nature connection. We know that people who care more about nature, or people who go and spend time in nature,
suddenly remember why they need to be more responsible, why they need to be more sustainable, and why they need to sort of protect nature more. So maybe bringing people to natural areas, taking people to retreats, taking people on spiritual activities or pilgrimages, somehow leads to maybe different types of thinking or behaviour. And ultimately, regenerative is doing these things in harmony with the environment and community. Maybe that's working really well already for your business or some of the destinations. But, you know, motivations of tourists may be a little bit more down this end. How do we get a little bit closer to making it beneficial for all stakeholders? So we can talk about different types of wellness and well-being. Where would we be maybe in the future? I keep being asked to write articles about 2050, where we'll be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So I was thinking that I do believe we're going to have more of these personal wellness journeys, hopefully leading to more eco-friendly and socially compassionate mindsets. So some of the retreats are really about being a better citizen. Are we going to move back to smaller towns? Are we going to move, I don't know, from big cities to smaller cities? Possibly. We know in Italy we've had slow city movements or transition towns being more environmentally friendly, more sustainable living. Maybe. Circular economy, there's a lot now about circular economy, right? In the future, who knows? Hopefully, maybe we're not living in cities so much. Maybe we're living more back in countryside. Living system approach in harmony with nature and people. So this is just some ideas about where we might be, but I think we have to use our cultural knowledge, our smartness, and hopefully decent government and business policy to bring ourselves to those levels. So tourism will be taking place somehow around all of this, being more sustainable, maybe regenerative, but who knows whether or not we take that path or not. We have to think about who we're targeting. We talked about solo travellers, men, families, of course, a lot of families coming to this area, going to beaches and doing other things. And we talked a bit about life stage. So you need different things at different stages of your life. You need perhaps lifestyle-related needs, wanting to be healthier on holiday as well as in life, wanting to be more sustainable, wanting to be more ethical and responsible, active aging. So all of these trends can also fit into here. I quite like probably some of you working with lifestyle segmentation, persona marketing, thinking about people's sort of needs as individuals. We mentioned personalization, so looking after people as individuals. So who are your segments? We won't answer that question now, but think about who are your segments. And you know, we know that, for example, from some of László's research, families and couples are growing in terms of their sort of market potential for spas, for example, lots of family spas now. And men are coming more into wellness, I think, through women, so maybe through romantic couples or families. There's a couple of examples of interesting practice, but I heard in the break as well that you already have some interesting practice yourself. But sometimes with my students, I'm using examples, for example, of the life class hotels in Slovenia, and I like the fact they have different packages for these target segments. They think about, for example, whether they're doing anti-aging or active aging. They use their local resources. They use the sea, they use the salt from the local salt pans, for example. And they also use healthy Mediterranean food, and we talk about Mediterranean diet. So that's one example where I think they've worked quite hard on having well-being as well as wellness. The other one, this island in Croatia, which was converted for 2 months of the year into a destination. And what I like about that, they also include the kind of intellectual wellness, where people do workshops about art and so forth. They've talked about health and about the environment. And they use designers from the Eden project so that it's low impact. So it's pop up and then they take it down again after 2 months. And it combines a bit of this kind of party beach tourism, like you have a lot of this in Spain and the Balearic Islands. But a bit like probably Ibiza or somewhere like that, they started to introduce elements of wellness. So it's not absolutely totally curated wellness destination, but they put wellness development into a traditional product. So I quite like this because it combines the sustainability with the education, with a bit of creativity. Transformational tourism, just a little bit about this because I do want to pass over to László. Solo travel is more likely to result in transformation. I think that's probably true. If you're alone, you think more about your life and you reflect a bit more. It doesn't mean only solo travellers can transform. as I said, trying to go beyond your own. So this end of the spectrum is the individual, this end was society and environment. If we can transform individuals, they might become better citizens or more conscious of the environment and more conscious of their actions in society. Now, the aim of a holiday is not necessarily to become a different person, but a little bit of that, a little element of that, maybe in our travel. Connecting to nature and society is important. More challenging experiences make people a little bit adapt to circumstances. So challenging, adventure tourism, volunteer tourism, going to a completely different culture, they push us a bit outside our comfort zone. So those things might result in transformation. And it's been said that we need to transform to become more regenerative, to have a positive impact on destination. Doesn't mean all tourists will do that, but that's when we talk about how maybe little elements of that could be put into something like this. And ideally we become sustainable, responsible. This is all kind of idealistic, but this is the kind of academic theory at the moment. And I had this idea, you know, we love this in academia, like the 4 Ps and the 7 Ps and the 5. So I put the 5 Rs of transformational tourism. You have a rest. We said rest was important. Recuperate. This was very important after COVID as well, to regenerate, get your energy back. And then once you've got your energy back after 2 or 3 days, you then start to rethink your life or rethink your behaviour. And maybe you renew yourself, you renew some habits, possibly. It's a bit idealistic, but I'd say retreat tourism, sometimes even sitting in a spa for 2 days, going on a pilgrimage, going for a long walk by the beach or in the countryside, these things come to your mind. These are some examples of retreats. So I've been working a bit with this retreat company portal for a while, and they have like a lot of interesting retreats. They have hundreds of them, and probably a lot of you are working with various issues. And I sort of tried to categorise them a bit according to what they're doing. So here's just the activities they're doing, but it's quite interesting compared to what we said earlier about healthy food or some of the challenges in life, or life coaching and balance, or stress management, or intellectual creative processes, and then some spiritual ones, and then some specifically connected to nature, coast and so forth. Then I had the idea that why not have a look at the language that they use, and this is very interesting. So I wrote a paper about this, but I just gave one example here, which I found very interesting. When you look at the verbs they use, they want to support and guide and teach and coach people, so they do want them to change, but they also want to support them. So it's a sort of therapy, but they don't call it therapy. Then they talk about self-development. So it's all about healing, cleansing, you know, we love detoxification as well, rebalancing, reconnecting and things like that. And then the renewal's coming. And a lot of it's about changing life. So your life ahead, new path, lasting change. And we said that wellness was a path to well-being. And that one example I quite liked because somehow it was really about managing life, self-development, and how they support you, and it's a journey, and you become a better or different person, and maybe you would also change the world, which is a bit ambitious, but you get the point. Like, it's quite interesting how they use language, and there are many, many examples of this, but I kind of like it because it was all about becoming something better or different, connecting to universe or, you know, positive change, and doing something ethical, meaningful, and so forth. So not to say that every facility can do that, but it is interesting how these retreats are using this vocabulary. So in marketing, maybe tapping into this a little bit could be helpful. And finally, of course, you're thinking, a lot of you, about your own business. You might be doing this already. Where are you on this regenerative spectrum? You can think about this. Who are you attracting? Which of the segments, or maybe different ones? Who do you want to attract in the future? Is it, you know, Generation Z or Alpha? Is it more men? Is it couples or friends? Is it different nationalities, for example, you know, more Chinese or Indian? And what are the priorities for your development? So, is it economic growth? Maybe you need to, because you need to break even, or you need some profit, or you need to make a living, right? So that's fine. High spending, small number of guests, that could be your facility. So it's kind of 5-star luxury maybe, or it's, you know, you want to keep the numbers small, but they have to spend more so you can make your business. László had these ideas that you can take some of the mass beach tourism, give them small experiences, small tastes of local culture and wellness. Although you don't want huge hordes of day trippers, that doesn't always work very well for cultural sites either, but maybe just a little bit in the destination. And how far are you involved with local communities, local businesses, local products, gastronomy, and so forth? So, and then sustainability, are you thinking about this consciously? Are you making a positive contribution to the local area? Do you want to make a bigger one? So, these are questions we can ask ourselves about business, I think, and try to improve on that. Final thought, and then I hand to László. So I think wellness, when we use that word, is more about luxury, or for people who are high spending. But well-being and healthy living, I don't think need to be a luxury. So we can also think about different segments who have like smaller income. How could they do things to make their lives better as well? And that's also important. And I think many rural areas, you know, you do have facilities not that expensive and people can get there relatively easily. Do we need to call it wellness or well-being? Maybe not. Self-care, or, you know, thinking about people's mental wellness as well as their physical body, healthier food, still eating desserts maybe, but just not too many, you know, having a glass of wine, but, you know, getting that balance again. But maybe healthy food is local food. In Hungary, healthy food is homemade food. Doesn't matter if it's cake, homemade is healthy, right? So it depends how you define it, right? And then understanding these trends, motivation, target markets, and so forth. And think what's your priority. And sometimes again, maybe there's a compromise. I want economic growth, but I don't want to destroy, you know, the local area. I really want to involve local businesses, and I don't want to be a global chain or whatever. So thinking about those issues, and then maybe your business is your lifestyle or your hobby, and then it's really important to keep it not as it is maybe, but to keep it at a certain level where it's economically sustainable, but also you still feel good about it somehow. Can we balance these things? I don't honestly know. I think we can, but it is a balance, it is a challenge, a bit like trying to live like, you know, a balanced, healthy, wellness lifestyle all the time. Can tourism really be regenerative and detox and wellbeing? I think a lot of it can. Not every form of tourism, not every destination, but I think we're going in a good direction, I think. And I feel positive about this, and I like all the discourse and all the discussions about it, and I hope we can really do something sort of better or different in the future. So in summary, I would say we need good policies, so ideally from government, some public health awareness among the general population as well, which we don't have in every country. And then thinking about transformation, so helping people to have a different mindset. Even what you said about people not being afraid to talk about their feelings or emotions, even that's a good step, I think, or eating a bit more healthily. And ideally, of course, in sustainable locations that value locality and local specialities and businesses as well. So that's all from me. Thanks also for your interaction, really was nice.